I think the big misconception that a lot of people have about producers is they think producers are people who just find financing for their films.
I immediately fell in love with the story and the script.
We were looking for an arresting image that could be well represented in like a little icon on your TV.
There's something about bad sound that just reads as cheap.
This was a case of bend over and lose your filmic virginity, but you'll get a movie made and your name will be on it.
Anytime there's like that amount of money, there's going to be lawsuits.
There's nothing more important than the safety and the health of everyone who's working on a production.
It was like a passion project. They said, we want your movie. It was a bidding war. It was a major bidding war.
You can't buy that kind of publicity.
You're listening to Producerville, the only podcast that interviews independent producers solely to make you a better producer. We try to bring people on that are on all spectrums of the indie producing world. And some people enter festivals like Sundance. Some people make one movie you've never heard of, but they all have something in common. And that is that they've walked through the producing process. They have lessons learned, and they are kind enough to come on to Producerville to share them with myself and Nate. And this week's guest is none other than Staci Layne Wilson, who is a good friend of mine. I've known Staci for at least 15 years. She is the daughter of Don Wilson, who was the lead in The Ventures, which was an instrumental band from the 60s. And they had over 250 albums of instrumental music, and they were so influential. And her documentary is based on the band's success over the years, and you have to see it. So if you're listening to Producerville, go see The Ventures when it's not out yet. And Staci talks about her distribution. She's in that stage now where she's actually securing the distribution. When it comes out, please watch it. It's a fascinating story, and Staci puts it together so wonderfully, and it's so informative and exciting. And you're going to want to start listening to The Ventures, I can guarantee you.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, you know, this is our first documentary on Producerville. We haven't done a documentary yet, but it's very important, I felt, to actually do one, because there's such a different process of producing a documentary versus a feature film. And there's so many documentaries with Netflix and Hulu, you know, they're all producing their own content. There are a lot of it's documentaries. So I think it's really important to do one.
Yeah, the documentarian goes through the same process: development, pre-production, production, post-production, marketing, distribution. Like, it's the same process. It's just a different way, you know, to go about it. And so invariably producers are also in the indie world are also documentary producers. So we felt like, yep, let's put this in there. And here's another thing. Staci has done horror movies. I only do horror stuff. It's funny that after all these years, all we're doing is talking about something that's non-horror, but she shares a lot of information. So we will stop talking, and you will enjoy our brand new interview on this episode of Producerville with Staci Layne Wilson.
The main starting point for doing a documentary on The Ventures would have been about 4 years ago, when my brother, Tim Wilson, was telling me about sort of his frustration with some other documentarians who were going to make a documentary about The Ventures. And they had been, you know, they started it like about 10 years ago, and then they didn't really finish it. And, you know, I said, well, I'm a filmmaker and I've done a couple of features. So, you know, why don't I take it on? I mean, who better? So that's how that started. But even though, you know, Anthony, you and I have talked about documentaries, and I knew that you had made a couple, and I know other people who made them. It's so different from making a feature scripted film. I really didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people think documentaries are easy, and in many ways they're much more challenging. Can you tell us a little about financing? Was there any financing that you secured? Did you raise money, or did you pay for it for yourself? And, you know, this is a podcast to be honest and to just tell everybody what you did. So tell us what you did.
What not?
You didn't rob a bank or anything.
Right. No. Well, I mean, you know, my dad helped me out some, because, you know, he knew that I was turning down paying work, my other regular paying work, to work on the documentary. So he helped me out. You know, I paid for a lot of it myself, and we did try it, Indiegogo. But, that's a whole other talent. You really have to be an expert at that. So I tried, but I kind of failed, I would say.
Yeah.
We brought in maybe $4,000 from the diehard fans who were happy to help out. And I sure do appreciate them because, $4,000 is, some money.
It's
And
not bad.
they helped us. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I was certainly looking at the successful campaigns, and thinking, oh, wow, we're going to get, tens of thousands, which we certainly did not. And then I had a friend of mine who is really, really into the music world. And she came on as an executive producer, she and her husband, and they gave me, some money, like $3,000 each. And I have to pay it back, of course, once the movie is out and starts making money. But, I appreciate that. And so that's kind of just cobbled together. And the fact that it took 3 years in production to make, it seems less painful until you're adding it all up and you're like, oh boy. But that's how it's like right now. I'm in the thick of getting quotes for errors and omissions insurance, which is extremely expensive. You can't make payments. You have to come up with it all at once. And things like that, I had to get an LLC that costs money to form. And so things like that are coming through now in post-production, I mean, even like it's past post-production, but it's in that gray area between the release. So, there's still stuff I have to pay for it. I'm in that gray area of like, okay, I'm not in the fun part of making the movie, and I'm not in the fun part of the movie being out and having people react to it. I'm in that kind of the abyss of paying and paying.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing? You're producing. That's what producing is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's the thing. So many people don't realize, it's like, yeah, you can shoot a movie, but then there's the deliverables that deliver, that delivery schedule, it's called. Yeah. And it can be a nightmare. In fact, and I know this is departing a little, but I was just on the phone with a studio today about a new documentary I'm working on, and they gave me 20 pages of deliverables. And Nate's working on the same documentary with me, and 20 pages. And I was like, I've never yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so producers listening, I mean, look up E&O insurance. It's errors and omissions insurance. And that's something you're going to need if you distribute a documentary or a feature film or anything. Those things add up. So thanks for mentioning that, Staci, because a lot of filmmakers don't know that. And they find out at the wrong moment, which is right at the end when they need to provide
right, when your money's all run out. Yeah. And it's something that you can't get around. It's not like you don't have a choice if a distributor picks up your film or if it goes onto Netflix or something like that. That's a requirement. That's a deliverable.
Yeah. What are the quotes that you're getting so that our listeners know like what to expect?
Right, yeah. Well, it ranges between about $3,000 for 3 years to $4,500 for 3 years. And unfortunately, you can't just take the bare minimum of like a year. I want a year. And they'll say, no, sorry, it's got to be 3
6
years.
days.
You gotta pay it all up front. So yeah, it's definitely, not fun. And hopefully I'll never need it.
One thing that I noticed about your documentary that you might have had an advantage over than, like, I've done documentaries and I'm not related to the person that the documentary is about that owns a catalog of publishing rights for 250 albums. So you play music in the documentary. How did you address the publishing rights on such a low budget production that is focused on the music?
Right. You know I mean, that was another sort of minefield that I had to dance through, because the Ventures, as famous as they are, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they have a lot of hit songs that people have heard of, like Hawaii 5-0 and Wipeout and stuff like that. But they didn't write those songs, so that's a different. That publishing belongs to the composer of that. So what I had to do was go through fair use. I hired an entertainment attorney who helped me figure out the fair use aspect of that. And that's just using a very, very teeny portion of some of those songs just to give an idea of what they sound like. And then I commissioned one of the current lineup of the Ventures. My dad is retired, so he's not writing songs anymore, but this Bob Spalding, who was very helpful, I commissioned him to write some sort of sound-alike songs for it. And then I also reached out to some bands who are big fans of the Ventures, because the Ventures influence so much in the music world. And I reached out to them to see if they had any original songs that I could use free of charge. And thankfully, so many of them are grateful to the Ventures for what they did for them, that they were willing to return the favor for me.
That's amazing.
Music. Yeah. So yeah, otherwise I never could have afforded it, because I did go through Sony and Peer Music for festival rights, which of course the festivals all crashed and burned. So I paid for those festival rights, and then the movie never really showed. So that was a shame because of the coronavirus. But yeah, I mean, to secure rights for a song like Hawaii Five-0, I mean, that would be, I don't even know, maybe $40,000 or more.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's ridiculous. I mean, I certainly can't pay for that. So what I did was, was able to use a few notes through fair use, and then commission sound alikes or music that sounds like the Ventures from other bands. So that's how I got around it.
Nice. It's all very clever too. It's like, and you kind of have to do that because no one has 40 grand to just write.
No.
It's, and also fair use for everybody listening. It's not a law, it's a defense pretty much. And I've used fair use before. And one of the things I think that's obvious when you're doing fair use is you are bringing value to the Ventures music catalog by playing a couple of clips here and there. You're mobilizing people to seek out that music, and you're bringing awareness. Yeah. And so that's fair use. I mean, if you're doing a documentary about how awful something is, and you're, it's like, then you're showing, then you could do damages. So I'm glad to hear that you, even though you're related, like, it wasn't like, oh, Staci can use whatever she wants. You still did the right producer thing by fair using it. And, so did you have an attorney write an opinion letter? Is that really what happened that said you're following?
I did, yes. Yeah. So I had an attorney who was kind of with me every step of the way, thankfully. And he happens to be a Ventures fan too. So he cut me a break on the price and let me make payments, which is wonderful. So if you can find a connection with someone who believes in your project or likes whatever subject you're working on, I mean, that can be helpful too, because they feel like they're doing you a good turn if they know that you're an independent producer, you don't have backing or anything. So it's kind of a nice way to connect with people through filmmaking in that regard too.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm learning as I'm working on this documentary with Anthony is how hard it is sometimes just to get an interviewee in a chair and actually get the interview. And, prior to that, I'd always, you watch a documentary and you go, well, why didn't they interview that person? And your brain tells you, well, it's so easy just to no, it's not. So like, how did you get, people like Billy Bob Thornton and some of the other like really big names that you interviewed? Like, was it difficult to get anybody?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for one thing, musicians, they all have egos and, they can be hard to, so they can be hard to get, corral them, and they're busy or whatever. And the thing with the documentary is that the interviewee is typically not paid for their time. So, they got to kind of find some incentive for them. Billy Bob Thornton actually has been a friend of the Ventures for many years, and they recorded an album together, I think about 15 years ago, but it was never released. But, he loves my dad, but I used to have personal contact information for him years and years ago, but it expired. I didn't have it anymore. So I went through his manager, and managers are like brick walls because their client isn't being paid. So he kept kind of jacking me around. I mean, he's a nice guy, but that's really nothing in it for him. So he said, oh, Billy's shooting Fargo, Billy's doing this, he's doing that, he doesn't really have time, So I kind of just gave up, and sort of at the, maybe 80% through the production where I was really wrapping things up, I figured, well, I guess I'm just not going to get him. I happened to be at the Sunset Marquis Hotel for a rock and roll photo exhibit, and he was there. So I just walked up to him and reminded him of who I am. And I said, I'm sorry, that you couldn't make the time to do the documentary. And he said, what are you talking about? I'd love to be in the documentary. So apparently
my
the
gosh.
manager had stonewalled me, and then
That happens all the time. Oh my God. It's such a tragedy. You do all this work and then you get a no, and then you bump into them later and they're like, I didn't even know about it. It's awful.
Exactly.
Wow. Now, was that the clip in the very beginning where you're interviewing him?
Right. Yeah. So that was the red carpet interview that I had done with him a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I kind of brought it in to actually interview him in person just recently. It was in 2019. So yeah, I mean, I've met him several times, and whenever the Ventures were recording in LA, he'd always want to be there and stuff. But I hadn't seen him in years, like maybe 5 years or so. And so, just when I was so lucky to bump into him there, really, I mean, that was certainly one of the advantages of living in LA, which I don't anymore.
Sure.
But, you kind of do bump into people like that.
Can you talk a little bit about the set design for some of the interviews, like how, you kind of figured that out, how that process went?
I really wish that I would have had a studio, but it's just wasn't in the cards for me to make every interview look the same. So sometimes, for instance, the Billy Bob Thornton interview is at the bar at the Sunset Marquee. We have other ones where we use people's houses that had kind of a music room. And then, for instance, John Fogerty, I went to his house and shot his interview at his place. And, he's very, he loves the Ventures too. He inducted them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I don't know him. And so to have me come over was kind of a big deal, to know his address and everything. So I just went by myself and filmed that, all alone. And so I would have, loved to have certainly had a controlled environment and one DP shooting everything, because when you put it all together later, of course, you've got different frame rates, you've got different room tones and different sound. So it was really quite chaotic in the end. But I think, when you see it all together in the film, it looks fine. But yeah, I mean, there were times like with Marky Ramone of the Ramones, I just happened to be at Monsterpalooza and he was there signing autographs, and I knew he had performed with the Ventures before. So I just had my iPhone and asked him, hey, can you give me a shout out? And he said, sure. So, things like that, where it just kind of, you have to roll with the punches and take whatever you can get. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So did you shoot with a lot of different cameras, or did you have like a main camera that you used?
Nope. We just from the iPhone to a Blackmagic to like a home video little Sony, so yeah, basically anything and everything that was handy as I was making the film.
That's a documentary filmmaker for you.
Yeah.
So did you call in?
Get the shot.
Exactly. Did you call in favors? Did you call people and say, hey, can I use your camera next Saturday? Like that kind of stuff?
Sure, things like that. And also friends' houses who have, very nice, there's a interview with Del Casher, who invented the wah-wah pedal. He's a guitar legend. My friend has a piano and a little music room. And so I asked her if I could come over and shoot at her place. And yeah, things like that, just to make it work.
Did you have a large crew, or was it a lot of times just you running around with the camera and getting all these interviews as you could?
Yep. The latter, definitely. Although I had, a couple of people that have experience shooting, like John Gulager. He has a Blackmagic camera and he's a DP, and he shot.
I saw him listed. Yeah. I saw him listed in the credits. I was like, wow, John was sitting there helping you. So cool.
Yeah. So he helped me out with a couple of the best looking interviews, honestly. And so that's just how we did it. I mean, like I said, ideally, if you have a specific look and feel in mind, it probably is best to have one location and have everyone come to you. But that's, that makes your job doubly difficult. I never, ever could have gotten Billy Bob Thornton and John Fogerty to come to a location. I had to go to where they wanted me to be.
Yeah. Can I ask you about one of your interviewees?
Uh-huh.
Waddy Wachtel, who is Stevie Nicks' guitarist for decades. I'm I love Stevie. You know how much I love Stevie.
I do.
And you love Stevie. What was he like? Was he nice?
He is so nice. He's actually one of the nicest people. we went to his house, and I actually got him through my executive producer friend, Lisa Johnson, who's a rock and roll photographer. She had actually shot pictures of his guitar for one of her books. And she had actually suggested him to me because even though my dad is in the ventures and I grew up with the music, he's just my dad to me. So I did not realize how many fans the ventures have in pretty famous musicians. And actually it was Lisa who told me, oh, Waddy loves the ventures. I had no idea. I was like, really? So she gave me his email address and I got in touch with him, and he's just super nice, super enthusiastic. If I shoot him an email, he writes me right back, and just a really down to earth guy.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe that's another lesson learned. It's like, if you hadn't mentioned it, I think maybe a lesson learned is talk about your project. If you're immersed in it and you're creating, talk about it. Let people in your orbit know what you're working on, because stuff like that happens. Like somebody will go, oh, Waddy's a huge fan. I found out that Carrie Underwood is a huge horror movie fan. I didn't know that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, I'm going to put that in my back pocket. Maybe I'll reach out to Carrie Underwood one day,
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm glad to hear he's a nice guy. Last thing I want to hear is that he's a total jerk. I've seen him
he's super cool. Yeah.
I've been to maybe two dozen Stevie Nicks concerts, and he's always up there playing that Edge of 17 riff. And I'm like, that guy seems so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he plays a lot locally in the Valley and whatnot. So you should keep an eye open for his performances whenever things open back up. It's a lot of fun to watch him.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned before we started recording that you had some challenges. I know you mentioned E&O and just the general challenges of getting people to actually sit down and do an interview. What were some of the challenges that you experienced that maybe you didn't see coming, or that became problems during production? Anything you can tell us about so we can learn?
So, as I mentioned, there was that other documentary that had kind of fallen apart or got abandoned or whatever. But as soon as I started making my documentary, they resurfaced and they're like, oh, we're going to make ours now. It's like, wait a minute.
Oh, no.
I know, right? Yeah, that sucks.
Had they gotten any interviews?
Yeah, they're back in production full swing, and we were thinking of combining forces, but they just had a totally different idea of how to do things, and they didn't, they didn't want me to direct it. They already had a director, and they said, oh, well, just, you give us your footage and we'll put you on as a producer credit. But I had already done so much work that I didn't want to do that. But they're nice enough guys. They're actually friends of my brother's, and they're in Tacoma, which is where the ventures are from. So they're taking a more like local Tacoma angle. So my documentary is more about sort of how the ventures and the rise of the electric guitar in the 1960s formed a perfect union, and how, each influenced the other. So my film is for people also that may not know or love the ventures, but they're interested in music history. So it's just a different take. But yeah, fortunately it's going to be the first one out. Otherwise, that would have been pretty crushing to have someone else pop out and say, oh, we're making ours now and it's going to be out first. So, but I certainly wish them the best of luck, and they're doing something different. So I'll be curious to see it. And really anything that celebrates the ventures is fine by me.
Is kind of nice. It's like, why can't there be two? As long as you're not doing the exact same thing. I think that might be a little like, well, it's a little redundant, but I would think that you would win out because you're related, man. It's
right. Yeah, the family connection.
Yeah, you would think they would be like, it's not going to work. She's like the daughter. So you're just so nice though. And I could see you saying, yeah, this is actually, I know you. So, and again, it must be nice to see this for you see this after all these years.
My dad is 87 and he's retired. And surprisingly, there's never been a feature-length documentary made about the ventures, even though they're celebrating 60 years in music right now. So it's kind of a good thing to see, a little recognition with two documentaries.
Anything ever go wrong on set? Were people funny about the release forms?
Yeah.
Okay. Let us know anything you can share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people,
Great.
if they're really big stars, they don't want to sign a release form. And I have had that happen on a couple of the interviews. And so I, consulted my attorney, my entertainment attorney, and, he said, well, clearly they're on camera talking about the ventures in your documentary. So I don't really see a problem with it. It's not like you're filming someone without their knowledge or something like that. So, I mean, that's happened. And yeah, of course, I mean, people have busy schedules and they keep, rescheduling. And yeah, sometimes I've had to set 2 or 3 appointments only to be rescheduled, but eventually they all came through. And we did have, any kind of film, documentary, short, music video, you might run into some technical issues. I did go to film someone way the heck out in, where was it, Camarillo or something, like really far from where I lived. And it turned out the reading of the sound was fine, but then when I got the footage home, I saw that it didn't record any sound at all. So we had to go back and redo that. But fortunately, it was a nice guy. But it's.
But you had to go back and redo the whole interview?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy! And they were willing to do it. Wow, stuff like that happens.
I wasn't shooting that one though, so I'm gonna blame the person. No, that happens though. If you certainly do your best to make sure that everything's working, but sometimes maybe things get neglected or whatever, and so we did to redo that, but nothing catastrophic.
So you got the documentary pretty much shot, and in your mind, you've got enough footage to start post-production when you got into editing and scoring and sound mixing and all that. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Yeah,
the editing process is pretty overwhelming. Thankfully, I had a really fantastic editor, Nina Hurton, who she is just really smart and resourceful and easy to work with, very, responds very quickly with ideas. She's also a musician, so that helps a lot too, where she understands the project that she's working on. So that helped a lot. I mean, it was kind of difficult after 3 years to come up with sort of a 3-act structure, where you want to kind of have a story to it. But there were some things to consider. For instance, I chose not to put myself in the documentary as the daughter of Don Wilson, whereas I have seen some documentaries done by family members and they, insert themselves into the story. I guess that should make it more personal. But I just didn't feel that was the right route to go for this documentary. And another thing with the ventures is the fact that they're pretty clean cut guys. They do instrumental music. So there's not a lead singer that you can focus on, or there's no personality like Keith Richards. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like, wow, these guys are boring. So it's like, there's no dirt, so I
no drugs, none of that stuff.
Yeah, no drugs. But yeah, so that was certainly, that takes away the salacious aspect of a music documentary, which personally, as a viewer, I enjoy that kind of stuff, behind the music kind of thing. But so that's why it took me a while to find the angle, but my angle, like I said, was the rise of the electric guitar and how the ventures were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and also, recognizing that and then having people pointing that out and saying, I remember there's one point in the documentary, one of the interviewees says, there are sounds in that guitar you aren't aware of yet, and it got them to focus on the actual instrument. And right. I thought that was pretty interesting. I like the way you did it, by the way. I found it fascinating.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot as I was making the film. So, hopefully others will too.
Yeah. You had a lot of illustration, like graphic animated illustrations. How did you go about creating those? Because I mean, they can get really complex. And sometimes I would find them to be problematic. I've never used illustrations like that. I've here and there I have, but I found it impressive. I find it impressive when I see a documentary that uses a lot of them so well, and it gives it a cohesive look and all of that. How did you go about producing those?
Well, I have to give kudos to Nina again, my editor, because not only is she an editor, a musician, she's an animator. So
awesome.
So she
doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the little cartoons of the ventures, and I thought she did really great likeness of them. I mean, another way that you could take it is to shoot recreations with actors, and that's something else entirely. I don't know, I just thought the animations were more fun, and they felt more like a retro throwback to the 60s and 70s. So that's why I decided to take that route, because there's quite a lot of stories that my dad tells that we don't have video to back up. So he talks about how he got started and just how hard it was touring in the 60s, and in a station wagon with 5 other guys in there. So it was fun to be able to tell those stories through Nina's animation, which also brings a lightheartedness and a fun to the documentary, I think.
Yeah, and also it's it's a lot for an editor, but it also keeps things like one-stop shopping, like they can handle it all. You don't have someone else, well, that's cool. That's awesome. That's a good tip. Like, find an editor that's also an illustrator. So
I really looked out. Yeah, it does help to work with one person on several different things, so you don't get to you don't lose focus too much dealing with several different personalities in post-production.
Can you talk a little bit about securing distribution?
Yeah, I certainly looked into all of them, and I did get, there's a lot of them out there. And I also thought about different, my different options, which is great. Now you can self-distribute if you want. You can hire an aggregator to just put your film out on the different platforms, but there's no guarantee they'll get out there. I ultimately decided to go with Vision Films, who is my distributor, because of a couple of different reasons. One is that almost every documentary I've watched lately on Prime or iTunes or Netflix, it's theirs. So that's their wheelhouse. They love music documentaries and working with people who make them. And also it's a woman-owned company. So when I talk to them on the phone, I just kind of felt a connection. And it's a lot, though. I mean, obviously they all have deductibles and things like that, so you do have to give up some of your money, but hopefully it's a trade-off in the fact that they have all the connections and they're already in that music documentary space. So in my case, that's why I decided to go that way. I don't know what I'll do next time.
So how did you approach them? Did you just send them a demo reel? Did you just call them cold? For producers listening, it just might help if you shared what you did to reach out to them.
Actually, it came about in sort of a roundabout way. I mean, they were always on my radar, but one thing that I do is I will reach out to other filmmakers who have worked with a distributor that I'm interested in, just to see what their experience was like. And actually, one person didn't have a very good experience with them. So I kind of put them on the back burner. And then a publicist that I was working with on something else suggested them. And she said, as a publicist, she's worked with them quite a lot. And she said, they're very honest and above board and they're great to work with. So I decided to give them one more shot. So I called them and connected with them, and they were interested in the film. And then I reached out to some other filmmakers who worked with them more recently, and they got good reviews. So I kind of decided to go by.
That's a good tip.
Decision. I think it's important to, I mean, let's say you're interested in, making a horror film, and that a lot of the horror films are distributed by, Epic or Gravitas or different ones like that. So I would definitely look at some movies that they put out in the past year or so that are similar to yours, get a hold of the directors and producers of those films and just say, hey, what was your experience like? And they'll be honest, good or bad.
Yep. I found the same thing. People, when they're asked for their honesty, especially if you say, listen, this is just for my own personal information, I'm not going to publish it or, speak about it.
Course,
tell me the damn truth.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think, we all want to help each other out. All independent filmmakers are happy to, pass along any knowledge that they've gained through experience. Why put someone else through reinventing the wheel if you've already done it?
Okay, so you're in the middle of securing the distribution now by going through your delivery schedule and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you know how involved you're going to be in marketing or the poster design? I see you have great graphics on your website and all of that. But
yes.
Are they going to want to repackage it and give it a look and that kind of thing? And how involved will you be?
Yeah, well, they are very collaborative, which is nice. I've heard some filmmakers say, oh my God, I just got the poster without my say-so and it looks terrible. They liked my poster, which I had designed by the graphic artist for Viva Las Vegas, which is a rockabilly kind of, guitar-centric event. And so he loves the Ventures. So he already knew the look and feel that I was going for. I wanted a 60s retro poster. So he created that for me. And so what Vision is going to do, like for the DVD box, they're going to just strip it down a little bit and reconfigure it. So they ask for your artwork with layers so they can use your existing artwork, but put it in a more simplistic way for the thumbnail world, but
sure.
So that I lucked out because I don't think they're going to do anything that's going to change or diverge very much from the look and feel that I've already created, because it's really perfect for the Ventures. So I've already paid for it myself and I've already got everything. So there's no need for them to really redo it.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, great artwork is great artwork. We all know it when we see it, And when I saw it on your web, I was like, oh, that looks really awesome. And it's got that retro vibe and the whole thing works. How about the title? How important is a title to a film, in your opinion, in general? And how did you come up with Stars on Guitars?
Well, it's kind of a play on words for fans of the Ventures, because one of the medleys that they've played for years live on stage is called Stars on Guitars, which kind of, different bits of their hits all strung together in a medley. So that's part of it. But also, I just thought it also speaks to someone who's channel surfing and has no idea who the Ventures are, but they see, oh, guitars. Well, I'm interested in guitar music. Maybe I'll tune in and see what this is. So that's why I decided to do that. I mean, I have seen some music documentaries named after, a famous song by the artist or something like that.
Exactly.
But if you don't know who the artist is, or you don't know the song, you might just click on by it if you're surfing through your streaming channels. So that's why I decided. I thought that it would be a good thing for fans of the Ventures who know what that is, but also for people who've never heard of them. They'll know that it's a guitar-based documentary. So I think titles are extremely important.
Now that it's done, I mean, I know it's not released yet, but the movie's finished. Is there anything looking back that you would do differently as a producer on the movie?
I don't think I could have. I mean, if I could do something differently, I would win the lotto and have a lot of money. I don't know. I mean, really, I did what I could with what I had. And so I can't say that I have any regrets. The few people that have seen the movie, it did play at one film festival and at the Real Hollywood Independent Film Festival in February before the virus really hit. And it won Best Documentary. But the feedback that I've gotten has been really good. So I feel like I did something right.
Yeah, I mean, I personally found it to be very informative, and it got me all excited to hear more music from the Ventures. When you hear somebody, you felt the same way, right, Nate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 250 albums at least.
Yeah, it's crazy amount of albums for sure. I mean, they really produced quite a lot, and they have been around for a long time, but still, it's pretty impressive.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I always thought like somebody that had like 20 albums was like amazing. It's like 250. Like, when did they sleep? That's amazing. So, well, cool. So, what are you working on now, Staci? Anything you want to talk about?
Sure. I am also in the midst of producing and in post-production on a sci-fi comedy that I co-wrote with Darren Smith from Repo, the Genetic Opera, and I directed it. And it's just a very small production, but I call it, kind of to give people that elevator pitch, Weird Science meets Oliver Stone's The Doors. So it's about a young computer programmer, a young lady who is a big fan of this rock star who died at the age of 27, the 27 Club, in 1970. So she's, currently living in today's times. And so she creates this avatar of him and it comes to life. And so they're in her apartment together. And, it's a fun little sweet romantic comedic story with a lot of great original music, more music for me.
Oh, very cool.
Yes, that Darren Smith has written. And we,
Yep.
found a really terrific actor who could sing and play guitar and act and looked good. It's kind of a Jim Morrison type.
Oh, wow.
So, so it was a lot of fun. We shot that in only 7 days in, my boyfriend's apartment. And then, so I just got the rough cut of that 2 days ago and it's looking really good. And I used the same editor, Nina. So she's doing a lot of, because he's a 60s rock star. So he has a lot of trips and hallucinations and LSD flashbacks. So she's doing a lot of cool graphics for it. So it's a lot of fun.
Now, also, Darren wrote music for Repo, right?
Yes. He's extremely talented. And his songs sound like, if you listen to one, it sounds like it just came out of 1968. So he's got a great ear for recreating certain eras and knows a lot about music. So it's really fun.
So cool. Awesome. Well, Staci, we want to thank you. We don't have a documentary in the Producerville podcast yet, and so and it's not horror, which is weird because we're all about horror. Everything is horror, and the one thing we talk about on the podcast is not horror, but equally interesting. And I'm so proud of you for cutting this documentary over 3 years. And
thank you.
Everything you do, I love. It's you have this incredible short psychotherapy that I loved a couple years ago. People watching, I would highly recommend you. How can people find psychotherapy?
Let's see. It's part of a horror anthology that I produced last year called She-Venge. And
I love it.
So it's different films directed by women, and they all have sort of a revenge theme to it. And I'm giving the profits to the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. So if anyone's interested in that, it's on DVD. Actually, they can order it from me and get it for just in time for Halloween. So
yes. By the way, I didn't know that. Awesome that you're making contributions. That's so cool. Very admirable.
Thank you.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to mention that we didn't cover that you were kind of waiting for us to ask that we somehow didn't?
No, I think you were very thorough. I hope it was helpful. I know that my situation is a little different maybe from others, but if you're interested in a certain subject that you want to make a documentary on, it might just have that same kind of grassroots feel to it, where it's just something that you want to make because it's your passion project and you have to sort of navigate it all yourself. And hopefully I've helped someone a little bit, and anyone is certainly welcome to find me on Facebook or whatever and reach out to me. I'm always happy to help others as others have helped me.
That's great.
Amazing.
All right, Staci, thank you so much. And we can't wait until people can hear your interview and learn from, a real indie filmmaker. So thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Oh, how I miss Staci. She moved away and she's not, she comes to town and, I'm sure I'll see her again, but it's like, she's just a great person. And as I said before, I've just known her for so long and I have such respect for her. And, she made her living for a really long time doing junkets. And, she's a journalist, a reporter, and she's interviewed everybody. Ask her, have you ever interviewed Brad Pitt? If you ever meet her out there listening, Producerville, ask her if she's interviewed certain people and she'll probably tell you yes. She's met everybody in Hollywood. It's crazy. Oh, and you have to buy her book. And she didn't ask me to say this, but her book is called So LA. And it came out a couple years ago. And she says this big, thick autobiography, this memoir of Staci Layne Wilson. And I was like, what? I know Staci. I know she's lived a very exciting life. But I looked at the size of this book. And I was like, what could she possibly be saying? And then I read it. I read it on a plane. And I was texting her when I was doing my stops, like when I was doing my layovers. And I was like, oh my God, this book's amazing. I can't believe the life you've lived. And so Staci's amazing. She's amazing. What stood out for you, Nate?
I thought it was really interesting that she said, right off the bat, that there were other documentaries in the works or actually in production when she decided to do hers. That, you know, there's kind of competing documentaries. It kind of didn't something like that happen with you with still streaming?
Yes, absolutely. I had announced, absolutely, when that's all I was thinking about when I heard her talking about it. Yeah, I did a documentary on Still Screaming. Everybody listening, it's a documentary on the Scream series. And this is actually how Nate and I met. And Nate is a huge Scream fan and movie memorabilia collector, and he reached out to me in instant friendship, and we're still working together. But yeah, shortly after that, a couple weeks after we started shooting interviews, we found out about another documentary, and it's not a good feeling because you feel like, you know, it's like, well, why is someone else doing it? And I could respect that. When Staci was talking about it, it was like she must have been very disappointed because it's like your thing. And especially, you know, she's the daughter of Don Wilson of the Ventures. Right. And so, you know, she actually embraced it and encouraged them and found a way to get it to work. For us, it became a competition between who was going to get this interviewee because they only wanted to do like one documentary. So we got all the people they didn't get, apparently. So we ours worked out. But yeah, it's not a good feeling. And then I think, you know, just in general, you have to like assess if that happens to you. If you find out two people are doing a documentary on the same thing, you just kind of have to see what your access is and if you can actually achieve the goal of telling the story you want to tell. And I knew that I could with the relationships that I had. And so I didn't doubt it for 1 second. Plus we were first, you know, we announced ours first, and I thought that gave us credibility, and it did. And I think that's how we landed, you know, some of the interviewees. Well, knowing Staci, she's going to get this across the finish line very quickly. And then she's obviously with a great company, and I knew exactly who she was talking about when she mentioned them. So it's going to get really great distribution. So everybody out there, check it out. You want to see it. Even if you're not into documentaries, just check it out to kind of see what she had to go through. You know, putting a documentary together, I kind of look at it like as a scrapbook. You know, you're not going to get every interviewee in the same chair, in the same green room, you know, where you can do a green screen. Sometimes you have to just run and gun it and run over when somebody's doing an interview. And for the Scream documentary that I was mentioning, Jerry O'Connell was one of those people. It was like his agent called that morning and said, he's available today, like 1:30 p.m. for 20 minutes at CBS Studio. He's shooting his new, you know, drama or whatever. And it's like, we'll bring you in the back door and you'll set up somewhere and he'll just sit in a chair. And, you know, we had to do that. I mean, it was great. It worked out. But sometimes at a moment's notice, you got to jump up and go. And that's documentary filmmaking for you. If you have a lot of interviewees, if you don't have a lot of interviewees, it's not like that. But so a lot of the stuff she was talking about was familiar, at least to me. So, all right, everybody, thank you for listening. And next week, we're going to hear from Mike Nichols. Not the famous Mike Nichols you may know. My friend Mike Nichols, who made one horror movie about 10 years ago called Breadcrumbs. He shot it on 35 millimeter, and it's one of the reasons we're bringing him on the show. Wanted to talk a little bit about that workflow, because, you know, some people still might be shooting on 35 millimeter. It's a horror movie that he raised financing for, and he's, you know, his films did not get into a festival like The Babadook and Open Water and earlier in the series. So you're going to learn a lot just from hearing about Mike making this movie. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next week on Producerville.